Thank you, Roger, and good morning. It's great to be among people who are at the intersection of discovery and technology and commerce. It's not where I live, but it's where I aspire to be. So I thought what I'd do, we just have a few moments to start off the day and start with a problem, then say a word about the solution, and then finally something about your role as well as ours. The problem you know very well, and that's that all societies are experiencing very fast-paced change, and some of those societies are collapsing under the weight of it. That change is driven, as you know, by at least three broad trends. The first is where you are, which is technology innovation. Second is economic globalization. And the third is demographic change. And while this has been going on for 20 years, well, even more like 25, we still don't understand the full effects of the interactions amongst those three trends. What we do know is that dislocations are occurring, that the anxiety is rising, disparities are growing, and a whole set of new dangers have emerged. And these dangers are all transnational in nature. No single state, no single society, no single sector can solve them. And food insecurity is among them, terrorism, climate change, emerging infectious diseases, and right now what we're witnessing is state failure and the mass migrations that occur as a result, as you see in Syria. That's the problem. Here's the solution. The same three trends that are kicking up those dangers are also empowering a new set of actors and providing a newer opportunity for collaboration among them. And by that, I'm referring to ingenious new enterprises, states that are opening and connecting their economies and therefore growing their middle class, and ingenious non-GOs, enterprising NGOs as well. And our sense, in the world in which I live, the world of foreign policy, our sense is that taken together, these three sectors are able to both capture the benefits of change and also mitigate their dangers. So I just go to food insecurity or food security for a moment and ask you what that looks like. That's a world in which we not only need technology innovation, something I care a lot about, but we also need social innovation that captures the talents of all three sectors. If we're looking at a situation where we're going to have to increase productivity, increase food production by 70%, and I believe that's the truth, that not only will populations grow, but populations with means will grow, and their eating habits will change accordingly. That the opportunity to expand food production and land use in agricultural production is severely limited, and that we face the risks of biodiversity loss, climate change, the gradual altering of the Earth's physiology. And so what this all means, and everyone in this room knows that, is that productivity gains must be achieved in a sustainable way. We have been particularly good at technology innovation in this country. We've known how to finance it. We've known how to sustain it. We've known how to apply it. We're a little shakier on the kind of social innovation that's required to capture the kind of the benefits that I've been describing. As we look, some of the more interesting social innovations, in my view, have been the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, GAIN, which I'm sure all of you know, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, Monsanto's growth ventures that have themselves sort of leveraged the knowledge of the talents of researchers while leveraging the world of commerce, venture capital, high-tech companies, or funding mechanisms like the Gates Foundation's $2 billion investment project program aimed at investing in AgTech, particularly in Africa, so as to help smallholder farmers be more productive. There's a range of innovations that take advantage of mobile, that take advantage of cloud computing, in essence, that take advantage of the technology out there to achieve a social aim. I think what is most interesting about them, at least from the perspective of a foreign policy person, what's most interesting, again, as I've said, is the leveraging of all three sectors: the public sector, governments; the private sector, commerce and enterprise; and the charitable sector, both philanthropies and nonprofits. What they do is, when they come in combination, we have an opportunity for them to share the risk, but also to share the learning. And in what matters to me, I think most, is to share data. And the reason I argue for shared data, and that is often the government's role, is to generate and share that data, is that it not only accelerates innovation, makes innovation happen at a much different pace, but it also has the effect of advancing understanding. And this is where I get to your role. I'd argue that in the world of discovery is not always fully understood. It's not fully understood by policymakers. It's not completely understood by those philanthropists who imagine that discovery is all about a predictable outcome instead of something a little bit more random at times. And it's often not understood by the broad public. And so my view is a conversation is needed. A conversation that looks at the kinds of innovations that are on the horizon, helps people understand how those innovations can benefit society, and helps folks understand how any dangers that are associated with those innovations and that discovery will be addressed by responsible actors. So I think I'd argue that you in this room, because you stand at the intersection of discovery and technology and society, you have an understanding of the business case for AgTech that is applied in a sustainable way. You understand the social case for it, the benefits of it, but not everyone does. And I hearken back, I think, when I first got interested in this world. I first got interested with the Green Revolution, but when I first came out here to the Bay Area after living on the East Coast, I was really struck by the public conversation around GMOs. And it wasn't always helpful. It wasn't always informed. Sometimes it was more about shouting matches than discussion or debate. And it seems to me that we're at a moment right now with CRISPR, at a moment of discovery that's even greater, that'll allow us to delete and replace genes, or allow scientists to do that, to correct genetic errors that have led to disease, or to provide the kind of, create the kind of crop strains that can resist common blights. This is an opportunity that is huge. It's an opportunity I'm sure you all think about in your day-to-day life. The potential for good is huge for those of us who care about that side of things, but the imponderables are huge as well, right? There's a lot we cannot know at that moment. And in the face of change, in the face of uncertainty, we as a society are not always at our best. It's difficult to deal with fast-paced change, and a lot of times innovations require a very thoughtful conversation. And I raise that because in my world, at the World Affairs Council, we're all about providing a neutral platform for conversations on issues that matter to society, to matter to individuals, that matter to states. We provide a neutral platform. We bring together the public, private, and charitable sectors, because we believe that that's where the solutions, so the intersection of those three sectors is where the opportunity, where the solutions to large problems lie. We don't take positions. We instead try to provide those who participate with the knowledge and networks to act on their positions. Your role. We turn to you to ask when the moment is right for conversations about the implications of discovery. As I say, sometimes those conversations are not as useful as they could be because the moment is not right. You know better than we. So we will turn to you, and we hope you will come to us to let us know where those conversations need to happen. What are the moments for engagement? Who needs to be engaged and when? At what point is this about experts coming together? At what point is this about a more public conversation? So I wanted to sort of urge you all to be participants in that conversation, but also to guide us in that conversation, to not let us make mistakes, the kinds of mistakes that I've seen happen in the world of public discourse when it comes to complex new discoveries. So with that, I will turn it back over to Roger. I don't think we're doing questions, are we?
We have time. We can take a few questions.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. We'll do a couple and then get on your way. So let me repeat the comment, because it's something I actually completely agree with. And the comment is, we should stop talking and start doing. Let's move forward with public-private collaborations and get the job done. I really agree with that. And fortunately, I think that's happening. I think that's the direction we're going, and it's a great trajectory. I don't want to see that trajectory stopped, halted, by a confused public debate. So I think I turn to you to say, okay, you're answering my question, when is conversation needed? Who needs to be part of that conversation? How do we ensure it's informed? And how do we ensure it does not stand in the way of achieving the many positive outcomes that discovery allows for us? So I'm sorry to say we agree. It would have been more interesting if we hadn't. Is there someone who will disagree with me? And then we'll move on. No more questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I won't disagree with you, but what I will add and ask your input is this. What you see is the practical reality in power, politics, and leadership is form and implement multiple public-private collaborations. Because we've had the Cal Public-Private Water Partnership,
Yep.
which actually did not achieve all of its goals. So it achieved improvement in the dialogue and some water allocation, but compared to its goals, it didn't achieve them.
Yep.
So it begs the question, how do you actually get, for example, somebody says, we know comprehensive composting will capture CO2 to help America. Well, what's the role of USDA? What's the role of the state, and how do we do it? So what's your honest assessment of the possibility of such partnership?
So what's been really interesting to me is, and alarming to me, is appreciation for science and technology varies greatly from administration to administration. So when I was read into my security clearance in the Office of Science and Technology Policy, at the point at which they got to, and you're not allowed to publish anything you've learned, I kind of laughed and said, you know, that's obvious. And the guy reading me in said, oh, no, in a previous administration, they hired a mystery story writer to have your job. And so I'm not going to name the name of the writer, but when he learned that he couldn't write about anything that he learned on the job, he said, I'm out of here because you know, my career is on the line. So that was, you know, that was a moment in which I really worried about whether government had a sense of the role of science and technology, its importance, and more importantly, to your point, the absolute imperative for collaborating with the private sector and the social sector. So I'm sorry to say, I think the results are uneven, or the level of knowledge and appreciation is uneven. Very few scientists go into government. Very few. Science policy is nowhere near as interesting as discovery. And that is it is a problem that very few scientists go into government. But increasingly what I've seen is a deep understanding, well, a broad understanding of the need for public-private partnerships, to the point that the State Department has an office for that. National Security Council doesn't, and you won't see that, but and the UN Development Program has it, and the World Bank has it, and just about every institution, every governmental or intergovernmental institution has figured out that if it operates in a vacuum, it will not succeed. It will not succeed. So that's the good news. The bad news is there are not enough scientists in government to guide conversation and guide decision-making. I believe, was right timing? Oh, I've got more time than I thought, so I'll take 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
Hi. You talked about the mistakes from the agriculture department. So there has been a lot of mistakes done in previously. For example, monoculture and spoiling the soil. There has been a lot of land which is unusable now. So how are you trying to prevent this from being happening? For example, now there is a revolution of organic farming. Basically, the organic farming is also helping the nature to be, like, for example, methane. If you do composting in a like large scale, there is a methane emission. So, I mean, how are you trying to do in a large scale? Because I feel the agriculture is the most important, because everybody is eating that, and it is the future of the people, basically, future of the country or the world. Mm-hmm. So how are we trying to? So
in my role, I don't work on that. You all do. In my role, running the World Affairs Council, that you know what all we can do is provide the platform for experts to have that to pursue that question. The Department of Agriculture, though, you mentioned agriculture and the Department of Agriculture, and I think what is positive about public sector engagement, government engagement in the process of discovery and its application, is that its job is the broader public good. And so therefore, its job requires a level of openness and transparency. And so its job is to, in essence, promote open data. That is not often the role for a scientist, nor should it be. It is not always the role for a company, nor should it be. There are reasons to not share all data until it's been applied. But when the government finances research, it is reasonable for the government to ask that the resulting, not only the conclusions be shared, but the underlying data be shared, so that we all can in fact ask the right next question. And so innovation is vastly, vastly accelerated with that sharing of data. So, I think that when you think about Department of Agriculture, you should think about 2 things. You should think about its role in financing discovery, and you should think about its role in sharing discovery, and its role in setting the right policies to surround them and to ensure that we learn from it. But, I'm a real believer, that the solutions will not come from government alone and should not come from government alone. Yes, sir.
My name's John. You talk about this being a global issue, right? We're talking. Oh, sorry. Thanks. Sorry. We're talking about this, big, hairy problem of feeding the world and agriculture. I just wonder if you could comment a little on what you see the US's role in the leadership of this kind of issue in a global sense is, what role it should play in that conversation, what the US brings to the table in the context of feeding the world, I guess.
Well, the U.S. has the advantage of size. It has the advantage of free markets. It has the advantage of not, in fact, pulling discovery only into the public sector. So when you look at, in the immediate post-war period, we made a very, Europeans made a decision to create scientific institutes that were part of government. We made a decision, in fact, to help finance universities that would create their own research and to turn to companies that would do their own R&D. And that, in my view, that system is a good one, and it's a good one for us, and that's the differentiator that I would say between the US and certainly Europe. When it comes to, I'm actually less interested in the US and Europe and more interested in the innovations that are occurring in places like India and in Africa, and less so in Latin America, but probably there as well. I mean, I should say I know less about Latin America, but probably there as well. I think one of the wonderful things about the world we are now in is that because everybody's reach and role have been extended and augmented, in fact, if a discovery happens in Lagos or here makes no difference. It is equally important to the rest of the world. And where you see a lot of the financing going is in emerging economies as well. So, back to your question, what's the US advantage? I think I like our system, but the US is only one investor and only one innovator out there. Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for being, well, should we do one more? Roger, give me the, one more. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Silicon Valley leads the world in technology. What's it going to take for us to lead the world in agri-technology? What do you think some key advice would be from the global perspective that you sit?
So, well, everybody in this room can answer this question but me. But having said that, Silicon Valley has got all the advantages, right? I mean, it's got the financing system, it's got this, every rung on the ladder of innovation is here. It's, you almost feel like it's in a 5-block area. And so, gosh, biotech, AgTech, these are areas of real innovation in Silicon Valley, real commitment in Silicon Valley. I think that the main point from my perspective is that this is a part of the country that embraces the idea of environmental boundaries, but it absolutely rejects the idea of all other boundaries. It is completely, when I say other boundaries, I mean boundaries across, between sectors, between disciplines, between countries. And that disregard for boundaries, I think, is the secret sauce of Silicon Valley. It's what makes me want to be here. It's what makes me believe that discovery will happen here. It's what makes me believe that discovery will happen quickly here and that it will spread in a way that it may not happen elsewhere. So it's the disregard for boundaries. I don't want to disregard the boundary I've just been given by the timekeeper, but I want to thank you so much. It's wonderful to be among people at the forefront of change. So thank you.